I never meant it as an accusation. It was a joke, careless and poorly timed, the kind you toss into the air without thinking it might land somewhere sharp. We were in the kitchen, late, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I said it with a half smile, stirring cold coffee. Funny how your best friend probably knows my scars better than you do. I laughed after, lightly, like it didn't matter. I didn't know Ethan was standing in the hallway, just out of sight, listening. I'm Marlo, 38, married to Ethan for 11 years. We met in Manchester, young enough to believe love fixed things just by existing. Back then he was attentive, curious, always asking questions, always touching my hand when I spoke. Life didn't fall apart all at once. It narrowed. Work promotions, longer hours, fewer conversations. Somewhere between mortgage payments and polite goodnights, I became background noise. The scars weren't dramatic. No single moment you could point to. They were small, cumulative, the kind that don't bleed but never quite heal. Anxiety, I learned to hide. The childhood I didn't like to talk about. The way certain silences made my chest tighten. I tried to explain these things to Ethan over the years, usually at night, usually softly. He'd nod, distracted, eyes already drifting to his phone. Eventually I stopped bringing it up. Caleb noticed, not because he was looking, but because he listened. He was Ethan's best friend from university, the constant presence at birthdays and barbecues. We talked during long walks when Ethan worked late. Nothing inappropriate, nothing secretive. Just conversations where someone actually asked how I was and waited for the answer. I told him about the panic attacks, the nights I slept on the bathroom floor, the reasons certain jokes cut deeper than others. He didn't fix anything. He just remembered. That's what I meant with the joke. A clumsy truth wrapped in humor. I didn't see Ethan's face when he heard it, but I felt the shift immediately. He stepped into the kitchen, expression tight, voice controlled. What was that supposed to mean, he asked. I shrugged, instinctively minimizing. Nothing, just joking. He didn't laugh. We went to bed without resolving it. He turned his back to me, rigid, offended in a way that felt rehearsed. The next morning he barely spoke. By evening, the silence had weight. Finally he said, "So you talk to Caleb about things you don't talk to me about?" It wasn't a question. I said, I tried. That was all. It was enough. He accused me of emotional betrayal, said it sounded like I preferred his friend. I didn't defend myself the way I should have. I was tired of defending the obvious. I told him I needed to feel known. He said he didn't realize it was that bad. That hurt more than the accusation. I had been telling him for years. The days after were polite and distant. No shouting, no drama, just a subtle reorganization of our lives. Separate routines, separate meals. He slept earlier. I stayed up later. I noticed how calm I felt, and that scared me. When you stop feeling anxious about losing someone, something important has already ended. A week later, he asked if I was unhappy. I said yes quietly. He nodded like he was confirming a theory. He suggested counseling, said he wanted to try. I believed him, but belief didn't bring relief. It felt late, like CPR on something already gone. I agreed anyway. Old habits die hard. In therapy, he listened more than he ever had at home. He said he didn't know how lonely I'd been. I watched him say the right things, and I realized that knowing now didn't erase the years he chose not to see. Love isn't just showing up when the room gets witnesses. One evening, after a session, he admitted hearing my joke had embarrassed him. Not hurt him, embarrassed him. That distinction mattered. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of looking foolish. I understood then that the gap between us wasn't emotional complexity. It was priority. I didn't leave that night. There was no bag packed, no dramatic exit. I stayed for another month, long enough to be sure. Long enough to feel the difference between hope and habit. Caleb faded naturally from my life. Collateral damage and something he didn't create. I missed the conversations, but I didn't replace them. I didn't need a new listener. I needed honesty. When I finally told Ethan I was done, he was shocked. He said he thought things were improving. I told him they were, just not between us. He asked if there was someone else. I said no. There didn't need to be. Neglect does the work quietly. That joke wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the moment the truth stopped being careful. I didn't know he was listening, but maybe part of me hoped he was. Not to hurt him, to finally be heard. Some people only listen when their pride is involved. By then, it was already too late. I don't regret the joke. I regret the years I spent translating my pain into something easier for him to ignore. I'm learning now that being known isn't a luxury. It's the minimum. And silence, when it lasts long enough, becomes an answer. After I moved into my own flat, the quiet felt different. Not heavy, not accusing, just open. Friends asked if I was angry. I wasn't. Anger requires energy. I felt clear. I slept better. I laughed without checking if it bothered someone. Sometimes I think about that night in the kitchen and smile. A careless joke revealed a careful truth. If someone only notices your scars when someone else names them, they were never really looking. Healing, I learned, begins the moment you stop whispering your needs and start respecting the silence that follows. Afterward,